There we go. We're live. Hey, everybody. We'd ask you to share some love, like this, comment, spread the word for us. That would be amazing. We're just going to share this out on a bunch of different platforms as we speak and get things up and moving. So, with that being said, I want to start today off with a funny little joke. So, in a management joke, because we're talking about AI for sales management, and you'll see why it's so applicable in a second. So, there's this guy, and he's up there in a hot air balloon. It gets out of control, and it wishes washing away, and he doesn't know where he is. And he finally sees someone after hours and hours on the ground, and he says, "Hey, you!" And the guy's like, "What?" And he's like, "Where am I?" And he's like, "Well, you're 75 feet up in a hot air balloon." And he's like, "You must be an engineer." And he's like, "Why is that?" "Because technically what you said is correct, but it's totally useless to me." And the engineer laughs and he says, "Hey, you must be in management." He's like, "Yeah, why is that?" And he's like, "Because you don't know where you are and you don't know where you're going."
Uh,
So I
a
thought that
great
was a little
segue into today's topic, actually.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit fun, right, everybody? I thought that was a little bit fun. So if you guys are watching this, can you like it, share it, repost it, get that out for us? That would be absolutely amazing. I'm just making that happen on my own. And today we're talking about, how to use AI for sales management. So I'm going to let Julio kind of take that starting topic away, my friend, and get that up and hopping. And then we're just going to repost this right now.
Yeah, sounds great, Jordan. Thank you for that, and thanks everyone for joining us once again. Always fun on this episode, and always a lot of insight as well. And today we're going to talk about something that is going to be, if it's not already, on the top of minds for a lot of different folks within the sales industry, whether you're in leadership or whether you're the boots on the ground. And that is how AI is really going to impact not only the sales process like we spoke about before, but now specifically on the management side. How's that going to play out, and what shifts and changes are we going to see in this upcoming year as a result of AI that perhaps we hadn't seen any time in the past? And it should be exciting. We're going to see a lot of interesting things come out from AI, and the one that we want to focus on today specifically is its impact on the sales leadership, specifically sales managers. How's that role going to look like? How's it going to evolve? Is it even going to be there in the next 2 to 5 years? We don't know, but that is the topic of discussion today. And I think that is a good segue in to just reference a couple um, quotes and pieces that I've pulled in from my research, and a lot of the folks out there from Forrester, Gartner, HBR, they're all predicting the same thing. They're all predicting by 2028, 60% of a lot of the capacity of a sales manager will be completely, I would say, automated with AI and generative AI, and the responsibility of those decisions being made regarding data, forecasting, etc., that are typically done by a manager and relayed to the team, are really going to be taken over by AI, and the decision making is going to be incredible. So, just wanted to preface today's session by the thought provoking ideas and some of the elements that I've been taking from Forrester, Gartner, HBR, etc., on what their outlook is, and put our own spin on it. So that's my introduction, Jord. I don't know what you have as well on your side, and what you're seeing in terms of sales management and AI.
Yeah, so let's set the stage with how I see sales management, especially in the modern era, right? The modern era, we already have really good dashboards, really good reporting. Most of us are focusing on leading indicators so we can see day to day how our sales teams are moving, not wait for monthly or quarterly numbers. And that's normal with a modernized CRM, like to do that. But where is it heading in the near future? Well, typically right now, there's two types of sales managers or sales leaders. There's the data driven one who just focuses on reports and knocking things forward, what's working, what's exactly there. And then there's the interpersonal one who's very strong at the bringing people along, coaching the sale itself, and really bringing those along, more that tactical sales piece. And some of those things are going to change in short order, because what's going to happen is that data driven sales manager isn't going to exist as much anymore in the future, because the data is going to be perfect. It's going to be there with the right suggestions based on trends and industry. So you will have high level strategy. Yes, that will exist in like how to make those decisions. But the day to day field level data provider, sales manager will be, and I'm very sure of this, in the next 18 months, almost eliminated. And if you're not an interpersonal leader, if you're not into coaching and developing others, if you're not able to take the nuance of conversations in industry and put it into those teams directly, your days, and I believe in sales management, are numbered. Right, you're going to have to adapt to something else, and maybe it's high level sales engineering. And what I really see is most of these people, these organizations are going to split. You're going to have the real engineered solution, like larger scale B2B process buyers and sellers kind of open up. And then the interpersonal people exist that actually facilitate the sale, the relationship, and the understanding. And there's going to be a place for a bridge between the sales engineer and the sales team. And I believe these data sales managers will exist in this hybrid engineering role, and it's going to kind of manufacture that way. And you guys don't know what sales engineering is, imagine a large scale RFP with a bunch of moving components, and you have all these things you have to collaborate and build out on. So we use our solution architects a lot for that internally, but we have to engineer a sale. Can we actually do this? The applications of it, the stages of it, all these different things. So we have teams that design these in larger scale B2B processes. So if you're in a smaller business right now and you don't understand that kind of wording, and then you have the salespeople actually opening the doors, understanding the needs, and bringing these projects onto the table for that sales engineer to help develop. And they work side by side to bring that across the line. So I believe that these will be accentuated, and there might be an elimination of the reporting data manager, and it will be able to be done by the relationship one and looking in the VP who sits above them in the chain, and then an engineering division. So that's what I kind of foresee. I would love to hear, hey, if you guys are listening to this and you're tuning in on LinkedIn, or you're tuning in on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, wherever, or X now that it's called, wherever we're broadcasting to, throw your comments up. We'll kind of throw them up here as we kind of go and answer them, because we actually get them in a dashboard. You got to love StreamYard. If you guys don't know what we're using StreamYard. So Julio, I want you to kind of dive in to how you see that mix, because even internally, that's kind of how we're breaking apart, right? We're having kind of sales engineering and sales kind of coupled directly, and our skills have to migrate into understanding sales engineering at a much higher level lately.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Absolutely, that's something that's currently happening, and I see that as a trend that's going to continue to happen. And to kind of, I guess, back up to your point about the data-driven and what's going to happen with data-driven decision makers. I mean, sales engineers definitely very technical as well on their side, and analytical driven and focused. Typically, when I think of a sales engineer. And I think that's still going to be a skill that is going to be needed, and that's something that I don't know if it will go away, but I do know that there's also platforms out there that are supporting that that movement towards that direction as well, right? Having access to real time data and information that's company driven, and it's product driven, that's tech spec driven, to be able to give sales reps the knowledge to be able to relay almost what a sales engineer would do. But I'm not seeing anything that's going to, I would say, unseat a sales engineer quite yet, or any time in the near future for sure, like we do see with the management piece, right? Because when I think of what's happening and just the move towards data driven decision making, I think it was McKinsey that said like companies that use analytics and data driven approaches are 1.5 times more likely to like outperform their peers. And I know that seems obvious, but that's like the driving, like foundational piece that everyone's moving and pushing towards. And that's really fundamentally what's going to happen to the sales manager position, is that movement towards this like holistic data driven decision making model is really what's going to like put the data driven manager out, and more so the motivational manager,
Exactly.
if not I would say replaced altogether, right? So having these tools in place that are currently, being done by managers today, like customer interaction tracking or reporting, at least on that, and bringing in market trends and insights. That's all going to be done by AI, and it's going to be real time. And to have a one-to-one with a sales manager, for example, in a week, and talk about what's happening with your customers, prospects. I mean, you're going to wake up as a sales rep and then instantaneously be fed like data from the previous night that says, okay, this person you need to call on right now. They've exhibited this type of behavior based on these trends. And then as a sales rep, now I'm day to day in real time getting this information that would typically like kind of come from a one-to-one that you have weekly with a manager. So things are happening quicker, faster, and just genuinely, I think, more data driven than ever before, and that's sort of what I'm seeing right now, and I think it's going to continue to pick up that way.
Yeah, and also there's some conventional rules to talk about with management. And the first one being like how big your team is. And back in the day, you shouldn't manage more than 8 people. That was like capacity. But with innovations like conversational intelligence, true data, these sort of things, a manager has opened up their time, and I think they'll be able to handle bigger teams, bigger and bigger
Mhm.
teams, because the conversational intelligence will isolate what you have to talk about on those calls, what you have to coach through, and it will give the example calls that it's referring to. So no one has to line them
Mhm.
up. The salesperson doesn't have to take the time. Everyone becomes more efficient because of it. And then it's going to make suggestions, and then you're coaching through how do you apply those suggestions? What's the nuance there? Where didn't they connect the dot? It's going to make things so accelerated. So before, as a sales coach, you had to prep the meeting, and really now with conversational intelligence, it's prepping almost everything for you, and you can walk it through in real time. Like, the amount of time savings is absolutely incredible. So when you're looking at becoming a manager of maybe a multitude of individuals, you could almost double the amount of people you manage effectively in the near future, or even more. You will have to have those one-on-ones and those coaching sessions and those group role plays. Those are always going to be things, because you can't remove the human from the element. It's never going to happen. Despite what people say, they don't want to buy from just some face on the screen. They want to know someone's going to be there, look out for their business, be thinking intrinsically about them, because everyone knows your network is your net worth. And everyone at a high enough level of business understands this, and they trigger off their relationships, and that's what they carry them forward. So I don't want people to get in their mind like, hey, everything's going to replace. We're all going to be homeless and working for AI, and this is the way it's going to go. It's going to be very much a hybrid, especially in sales management. Now, there's some exciting trends on the move. So, for example, HubSpot has ChatSpot coming out. We have Salesforce coming out with Einstein. And these are AI platforms that sit on top, and you can feed in to get certain data responses. So imagine like their own kind of chat GPT-4 that sits on a system and learns and does things. These will come to full fruition in the next 18 months. They're not there yet, but they're on their way. And these are exciting things that are happening, right? Exciting betas that are happening within them. And this is going to be able to articulate data in the way that you're looking for. So, the winners of this are obviously going to be the big platforms that are investing in it, right? And this is what people have to pay attention to. If they're not investing in AI, and they're not some of the names I just listed, and there are some others, you have to be very careful, because is that horse going to win the race for you? Is that the one you should be betting on? And that this is where factions are going to kind of move left and move right. And what am I using? Am I using Outreach? Am I using SalesLoft? What complementary selling technologies have I stacked on top? Who are my data providers? What data is good, right? In the noise of email and new laws and legislation on spam coming out from Gmail, how are you actually going to get through there? People used to rely on mass email and all these different things. That's still going to be there. It's still going to work. So people have to understand that you can't cut that out of your business. But we're also going to be going back to a lot of calling. I guarantee you there's going to be a shift back in a huge way, as we're seeing now, to SDRs on the phone, because this is going to be a way of getting through all that noise. LinkedIn is also getting fairly noisy, right? There's a lot of messages and things that come out through people's automations and whatever it is that they're throwing out to people. So it's trying to understand, how do we cut the noise? And these AI sales management tools, the cool thing is, they're going to be able to cue in saying, this is working. Look where leads are coming from. This is where you should expand your time. And by understanding that and being able to walk through and record what we're doing every day with maybe an autonomous agent program. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, autonomous agents basically watch what a person does on their screen all day. It maps out what's effective. And then based on what others are doing, it will map out what's more effective for that person. And that's how they're developing these programs in the background, by mapping successful habits of those individuals. So this next level is going to be extremely frustrating, yet extremely productive. And those two things are going to clash. And a lot of people will get put out to pasture, for lack of better words, because they'll say, I just don't want to adapt. I just don't want to do this next thing. This is silly. And this ship is sailing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's like being behind on a wakeboard, being towed on one of those ropes behind a cigarette boat. Like, this thing is fast and it's going to be hard to hold on, right? But it's going to be one exciting ride, that's for sure. So, Julia,
Yeah, man, it certainly
yeah,
will. Certainly will. And I just wanted to say, I mean, I see three pathways, right, of going about this, right? You take the Netflix approach and you say, you know what, we're not going to adapt. We're all good. We're going to ride this out. And we're in a good spot. You could take the Blu-ray versus DVD approach and say, you know, I'm going to bet on this horse versus that horse. Or you could just jump in and really get in at the ground level and adopt early and don't allow the market to speed past you too quickly. And that's what I would say. I suggest everyone looks to get in that lane rather than take the Netflix or the Blu-ray approach, which generally doesn't end good for anybody in those companies.
yeah, 100%.
Right. Yeah, and to your point, I mean, exactly, right? Like with the email piece, yeah, it's still going to be needed, but now more than ever, especially with Google's changes, we're seeing that there's just a ton of need for extra additional personalization in sales interactions, like via email or whatever, right? And that's what customers expect now. They don't expect a spray and pray approach anymore. It doesn't work with them. That all the information's online. They can find stuff. They can research, and they do research. So when you do reach out, it better be in a personalized way. And I think that's where a lot of this data that you were speaking of is going to come into, I think, just really drive productivity and efficiency and optimization in people's sales processes. And knowing which pieces of content to send when and why and to who, and exactly what the result is likely to be based on a predictive model or historical model. I mean, this is great stuff, right? This is stuff I wish I would have had my entire career. So this is very exciting for me, and I think that's where it's going to really shine is helping people with the personalized engagement piece, and sales managers will have a strong role in that too, in making sure that it's facilitated to the right folks who are working on the right verticals, industries, buyer personas, etc., and they're executing on that, and really just more of a facilitator of information and more of a coach versus the traditional management role today. So that's I think where I see things going.
Yeah, and there's so much more to say there, because we look at sales from a B2B sphere, and I want people to understand B2C sales is going to change immensely with conversational intelligence and actually robo people that can act like humans. I don't know if you've seen the stuff from Google, but it's going to be wild. And managing a B2C team is going to be dramatically different from managing a B2B team. And that's because the application of technology in B2B will never go to a robo person. It just won't. Like, that technicality that you need to talk about consulting, high level service, industrial manufacturing, whatever it is, when you're cold calling those individuals, you're going to need a trained human. And to replace those nuances, that's still many years away. But in a
Mhm.
B2C market where you're selling a flip phone, a flip phone, yeah, right, a smartphone, and you're selling these just gadgets or widgets, that you have a very understood product market. You understand the questions people could ask and the specific responses and objections that you can handle, that are very limited and have less nuance to them and less engineering to them. They're going to be able to categorize those, I think, in the next 18 to 24 months. And B2C teams might just be primarily really smart AIs dialing you up on the phone. And you really know the difference. I don't think, just from what I've seen, we won't know the difference. So that means sales managers in the future of B2C might be a whole different version. It might be AI to AI to strategist, right? And you could almost run an entire infrastructure where before you had to have 1,000 people in a call center overseas to handle everything will be able to be digested and solved through AI. And that is wild to me. That's wild. So that next level might be a crazy one, because imagine all the customer service and stuff now with chatbots like Drift that are out there, or there's a couple other ones like Sixth Sense and things like this, different providers
Mhm.
that you can put a chatbot on your website. It will autonomously learn all the questions that are on there, and then it will drift them into the answers, right? Which is pretty cool. And I imagine that when you don't have to learn customer service, or you can pre-qualify leads off the website to a point where you can now. And then there's tools where right now that Julio and I know about, you can click a button right on the website and it takes you into a video chat directly with the salesperson right from that qualification question. That's nuts. And they don't even have to have the platform. It's just click, boom, in, done, and you're talking to a rep, like the instantaneous movement. And I believe that will be fundamental, that managers are going to have to pay attention to, is buyers in the future are not going to want to wait, right? So that shift to immediacy is going to be dramatic. And I think it's going to happen, as I said, in the next 18 to 24 months, we're going to see a total, like we just went through a huge shift to this movement towards more sales engineering, customization, high personalization, because money has got tight in the market. The cost of capital, I think, is 3x, because all the boomers now are in money market funds or whatever else. They're not investing in projects. Projects are much harder to raise money for. So the buyer now is much more astute, and there's less quantitative easing going on at a federal level or across the world right now. So that means that that tightening has caused everyone in their sales cycle to have to be more specific, more tactical, more on point than we've ever been before. And even when they open the money spigot back up in the future, I believe that this rapid progression since this tightening cycle has happened is going to carry over into this next generation, because the AI has been developed to ask the hard questions, to point out this. There's not going to be money to throw around so easily anymore. So buyers are going to become so sophisticated that if you don't have this AI sales management thing worked out, you're going to be left behind because you won't qualify for that next stage. What are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
yeah, totally true. Totally, I love it. I think it's exactly what I'm thinking as well. And a nice lead in, I think, because what I see happening now is this, because of the economic uncertainty, and there, like, what is going to happen, we don't know. I mean, obviously things will get better, but it's uncertain, and what the timeline looks like. So everybody needs to focus on high value activities, right? High value sales activities, opportunities that are going to pan out. So there's a much, I would say, stronger focus on that. And that leads us to things like intelligent lead scoring, for example, or predictive forecasting, which we're starting to see come out as well, and really start to be more accurate. And these things are essential, and they all play into this scenario that's kind of taking place around us with this economic uncertainty and the problems people are having these days. Is the focus is laser now, and this is what AI is going to really bring to the table and shine with, because that's what it exactly can do. It can use millions of data points in real time to come up with these, like, boom, focus high value activities that you need to do. Focus on this customer based on these lead scoring models that have been intelligently put together based on a number of different things that would take a human to, or a team of humans, like months to kind of work through that process, where it's going to be dynamically changing. That's a big piece. So I think that prioritizing high potential activities is really going to be a part that AI plays into this.
Mm-hmm.
To your point on that focus and personalization. And the other area, like, that I personally like, coming out of like a sales management role and training role over my life, like, I really like love the idea of this agile resource allocation. Whereas, like, I've always struggled, and I know everybody that's been in roles that are sales management related struggle with, like, when should we grow our team? Should we pair one SDR with one AE? Like, what does that look like? When should we accelerate things? Should we have 2 to 1? What's the ratios look like? And there was never any right answer. It was always like a lot of gut instinct. And of course, there were some calculations you could try and do and forecast on, But now with AI, I think that's going to like allow dynamic shifts within an organization in real time, essentially like putting the right people in the right seat, and at the right time to make sure that the resource allocation within a company is lean and agile like that. So having people that can execute a couple different things is also going to become a skill now as well, where someone can handle, let's say, additional SDR work, for example, or prospecting, but then they may shift over to some account management work or whatever that looks like, right? I mean, for example, there's going to be a number of different things that play out there, but I think those things for me are big. The focus on high value activities that are generatively AI produced, and then the agile resource allocation, because I never had that being in a sales manager role. I think that's going to be super helpful for organizations acting lean and agile, and going to really put people in a good spot economically.
Yeah, and I think that multifaceted role thing is going to be a dynamic thing that's going to be created in the market. Like nowadays, companies expect extreme ownership of task and high independence, especially in the world that we're in, mid market, smaller business. You can't compete against the big oligarchies of the world unless you have extremely dynamic, agile teams that are willing to go the extra mile. Like even a lot of people on our teams have said they're in an operations role, but they're like, hey, I want to sell part-time too. I want to be, drumming leads and relationships and making things happen. And we give them a pathway to do that because they know that these multifaceted approach do two things. They sharpen the mind across the board holistically about how things work. And then second, create more revenue for the company and in turn more revenue for the employee. And I think now it's going to now more than ever with these technologies, you point out the weak spots in your organization very quickly. So if you're not a goer and you're not going to that next level, you will get found out fast. It's not like it used to be where you could hide in the mix of it, live off the nuance of it. Now so much is going to get automated. You're in trouble. When that consultant walks through your door and it's like, we're automating this and doing this, this is where you better sweat and up your game. So that's where personal development comes in. I love it because I'm in consulting and I like to push people to become better. I think that's the heart of capitalism. And that's what exists because when we have to redefine ourselves, reskill ourselves, find new innovation to push society forward. And I believe AI is going to make some of the sharpest, brightest people with the fastest innovations to protect our world, whether that's environmental, the right stewardship, the right governance, is all going to come out very quickly because we're able to map and see things like we've never seen them before. And with AI sales management, just bringing it all back, this is going to make your organization leaner, is going to make it meaner, and it's going to make it way better. The productivity per person, I believe, will triple in the next couple of years. Just triple their productivity. Now, that might not come out in revenue because prices may drop because of it. I believe that AI is actually going to be extremely deflationary because the cost of producing a widget, the cost of producing a service is going to go down exponentially. We know that. So, when you look at deflationary forces, as Kathy Wood say, I just watched her update the other week. AI is the most extreme deflationary force that's ever existed in the world. Having a robotic human being that's mapped out others that can do their job, and you give it a command and it can spit something out instantaneously that would have taken 16 hours of work. Think about the chaos of scaling and the deflationary pressure that exists. Something that would have cost 4,000 now costs 40.
Mm-hmm.
It just computing power, right? That to me is the egregious environment that we're entering. We're entering a phase of this world which is unforeseen in scaling human activity with with artificial intelligence to that scale, 1/100th. Imagine something that cost your business 4,000 now costs $40, and it would have taken 4 weeks, now takes 4 minutes. I don't even know how to tangibilize that, but it's going to come. This is what's coming in the next 18 to 24 months. Services are going to cost less, right? Dynamic strategic ones will cost more because there's going to be very few people who can outthink others. And the ones who can are going to be highly, highly valuable. And also people that can integrate technologies and do really well. And why the way it's just going to go well. But people who are doing menial things like setting up an ad here, doing this over here, like little things in marketing, you're going to get cannibalized. Just be prepared to get cannibalized, right? And this is going to happen fast. And I'm excited by it because I like the pressure. Like I like adapting and overcoming. But hey, let us know your thoughts. If you're out there listening and you're intimidated by this, let us know what you're intimidated by. Let us know what you're excited by. But just know that this is going to push us to our bounds as white collar professionals. I feel like it's that a new episode of South Park where all the trades people are like super rich and get paid all this money, and then all the white collar professionals were in front of Home Depot with like, "Hire me, I'll be your lawyer, I'll be your tax accountant," things like this. I feel like it's moving there with technology. So the shift in the value of the marketplace is going to be dynamic as well. So maybe the best schooling for a lot of people will be in the trades, will be in these different forces, and we're kind of seeing that now with the shortage of trade. Right. So when people are looking at careers, they're maybe like, hey, maybe there's something to being a carpenter or something to being a plumber in the future, because a lot of these white collar ones will be dominated by mid and high level consultants. And the barrier to entry will be $100,000 in subscription programs to these advanced programs. So no longer can a solo marketer just jump in and be part of the race. So I think the barrier to entry will be much higher. And that's what I'm trying to get at, especially with AI and sales management in companies, because unless you're equipped with the technology, you're not going to be able to compete.
Yeah, yeah, good point. I mean, folks that have that specialization are obviously going to rise to the top, and they'll be in a good spot. But anybody who doesn't, I mean, what we're going to see is like economies of scale sort of like get reduced, right? Because now everybody's going to have access to similar technology or AI that's going to help, and it puts that the market in a position where prices are going to reflect that, and some of the bigger players are going to be dropping their price to really squeeze on their economies of scale of production and offering, and that's going to really do a number on revenue for a lot of folks in terms of just seeing the things shrink, and the value of whether it's a product or a service. So it should be interesting to see how that goes. And I think you're right on that vision of what's gonna take place. So I guess around that, I mean, trying to wrap my head around what that means for the average sales manager and the average person sitting in his chair and making calls, right? And I don't know, I really see it as a shift in the role of the manager, and the role of the salesperson. Like there's just such a new opportunity now for training, right? Because now the sales reps now need to know how to utilize all this data, right? And that's not AI that can do that. It's got probably going to have to be a human. So not saying again that people are getting wiped out from the management position, but it's going to be such a shift that I don't know if that's even going to be the right name to call it anymore, as sales manager. I don't know, right? But at the end of the day, now there's going to be this need for training, for insights, for just familiarity with the different types of data tool sets that are going to come out so that people can make use of it, in the right way. Until things integrate holistically, which is never going to really happen because you have these competing players that always want to do something different, right? You got the Apple store, you got the Google store, that never they're going to play well together because they don't want that, right? So there's always going to be a little bit of a disconnect somewhere. And how do we put the pieces together in the right way to make it as holistic as possible? And what training supports that? And what additional things need to happen from like a technology training standpoint too, not only just an interpretation standpoint. So yeah, there's a lot of things I think are going to change based on like your outlook, and I think I share that similar view. But see that this in a way, I'm trying to see it from a light of what's going to take place in that seat as a sales manager, and I think that's what's going to really change is that dynamic approach to facilitating different trainings, different insights, how to use these insights, and really be much more of a facilitator versus I would say data analyst.
Yeah, exactly. And like it brings up this. A lot of people have been able to get by on gig work and things in between for the past little while, and they could be kind of average, but not anymore. I'm just telling you, it's coming where there's the death toll already out there for gig work. Like you are gonna suffer, and the reason you're gonna suffer is someone who's faster and smarter is gonna automate your life. And so, with that being said, where is safety? Well, there's this old thing, sell or die. Remember that? Remember those when we were younger, Julio, growing up and learning sales, sell or die, always be closing. Coffee's for
Yeah, yeah,
closers. Let's go, right?
yeah.
Fourth place, you're fired, right? So Glenn Ross, if you guys want to watch the movie, it's really, really good. But the idea is I would encourage people to build their sales skills. You may not make it in marketing in the next little while, but there will be a bunch of sales roles that exist that will be pretty dynamic, and they'll need people who understand the technologies. And you may have a basic understanding of got along on get to work, a few clients here, a few clients there. But now's your time to transition to a sales role and do well because you understand the text. You can use them. As Julio said, you can use the data quickly. You know how to integrate. You know how to automate tasks. You understand workflow mechanisms. You understand sequencing. If you understand these, there could be a multi six-figure sales job sitting there waiting for you, right? And you're just going to have to make that adaptation. Is it going to give you less freedom because you're not working for yourself as much anymore? Yeah, that's probably going to happen because as we see in history, as innovations happen, it clusters into bunches. So if you've noticed, Canada, where we live, is the home of oligarchies. We love them. Like, let's give telecom example. We got Telus, Bell, and Rogers. That's it. And I think Rogers bought Bell, or no, Rogers bought Shaw. So we had four. Now we're down to three. And these things will happen the same thing in this world as well. There'll be a lot more conglomeration, a lot more bunching that will happen, and it will force out smaller providers. Now, the adaptability that a creator has. So if you're a good marketer and you're good at TikTok or you're good at let's say Facebook and Instagram, you're going to have some variability there, and you can do consumer products and you can have a following because influence is always going to be a thing. And I think a lot of tactical brands are going to move, especially with AI telling the sales manager, we should, and this is where the attachment from AI sales management goes to marketing. It's going to say, we want to put more heat onto these areas. Who are the influencers can do it? And I believe that there's going to be more of a shift to an influencer brand marketing facilitation of people who have trust in those industries already. And people are going to flock to them and say, oh, they think this is good. Wonderful. So I think the partnerships, traditional advertising versus influencer with the right data that's coming from this are going to shift because we're going to be immediately to target this influencer, that one, to bring people into our category. And it's way more specific when people have those niches. So is there opportunity for solopreneurs or creators? In a huge way, but you got to carve your niche out very specifically, I think. Now, with that being said, there's amazing companies that are innovating in these brand spaces and doing things right now that can bring alive a brand through influence really, really quickly, whether that's a retail brand or a B2B brand. They're all there. And people aren't really thinking. They're thinking, oh, how much am I spending on Google? Or how much am I spending on Facebook? Or how much am I spending on LinkedIn? When they should be thinking, how many influencers are advertising for me? And what's my cost per acquisition off those influencers? Because they have the direct ear of the market, right? Like when we say big names, I wonder what it costs to advertise on Valuetainment with Patrick Bet David and these other big people. It's absolutely probably pretty wild. So, Julia, what do you think about that kind of shift? Because I don't know if I've thrown that one at you before.
No, no, no. And it's interesting too, because I've been thinking about that on the side in terms of like account-based marketing, right? Because there's so much that goes into it, and targeting a specific account that is going to be influenced in a very unique way. One of the ways to do that is generally not through like advertising. It's through finding the right influencer, or let's say maybe influential media advisor to them, right? Like if you're targeting Google, for example, who do they look to? Who's on their agenda? Who's on their radar for, data or thought leadership or whatever? And we need to somehow tap into that, because that individual, being on our side of the table, or speaking the same language as us, puts us at a significant advantage to win that account. And that's not something that you can do through advertising, because everybody's got that. Everybody's doing that. And that's, of course, a must have in certain areas. But that influential piece, just like when social media came out and it gave like individuals a way to speak and a platform, versus just having like these marketing companies that would go and say a message to you and not have any two-way conversation, and that's what you had to listen to. I mean, the shift trust the trust shift just like was astronomical, right? I think I can't recall the numbers correctly, but like it shifted from like trust in like television companies, radio advertisements to like even a company itself to like completely away from that, and then over here to like employees that have nothing to do with getting raises or in the sales process at the company have a big pull, at a level of influence, versus like let's say the marketer or a C level, because we had so much to gain from it and people see that, right? That's why reviews came such a full circle to being really really valuable out in the market, because everybody's got the best hotel or the best product or the best service. Then you show up and it's a different story. But when you hear from third party folks that have built trust up and they're not going to lie, they don't have a reason to, there's where the trust lies, and they can have the biggest impact on the buyers, or the account that you might be working on. So I see that also playing a role in account based marketing and really being like a staple too going forward. Is like not only can we execute these activities that need to take place to strategically target an account, but also now to like strategically target like either media companies or influencers, like individual ones that have that the ear of the management, the leadership team, the decision makers, and can influence, on our behalf, in a general sense. So I totally agree with you on that. Maybe from a different lens, but I think we're on the same page on what that's going to look like.
Yeah, and it's fun to explore these marketing topics, because what comes next is we've seen from traditional media, like nobody trusts news channels anymore because we know that they lie constantly, and it's just the truth. The majority of the things that come out of their mouth are lies or misdirection or one-sided, left versus right, right versus left. It's all nonsense. So most of us have turned to podcasts. Most of us have turned to YouTube and following people who share values with us, and we're going there. So I believe that the future of marketing is really there. Traditional advertising is going away. Google advertising, it's important to remarket and stay in front of people, but it's shifting as well, and especially with Bing and their AI on ChatGPT, and then Bard and Gemini for Google, and moving that forward. How's that going to shift? How's it going to play out? Like, we're watching the races go on right now, and we're watching the shifts in our buying patterns as marketers, right? And I'm just really interested how AI sales management is going to interact with the node of marketing AI, picking up the trends of where we spend and what we do, and those instant adjustments. It's going to be like, remember in the early 2000s when they would build like fiber towers closer together to get that instantaneous trading microsecond on the stock market? I feel like it's
Yeah.
almost going to be the same thing, where you got these AIs just like battling and using each other's information to like push forward a result. I feel like we're almost there. We're almost at that. Like, it's going to become like a trading a stock, like buying a block of marketing in a certain space, because we know these words within a perfect accuracy are in a certain way. And you won't need a marketing manager. You have someone predicting trends, this AI, just doing the buying and the moving, and you just have someone have to set it up and do the creatives and the pieces. It's going to be a wild new world. This is a wild new world. I can't even contend in my mind. It almost makes my head hurt, right? Like how quickly this is going to happen, and how quickly all of us have to adapt to it, right? It's
Yeah,
what
like to
that's
your point, George, like I think it's a great opportunity to look at it in the same way that we were talking about, like the market as well, looking at how people are operating internally. Because, like you said, like now it's going to be that like hyper, like those little things that make a difference between sales and marketing, that millisecond that of sharing of data, to make a difference, to get onto the phone quicker than the next person, or with the right messaging, or whatever that looks like. It's like almost like we're getting that point where it's like, Olympic swimming, and you're shaving the hair off to get that like microsecond. And that is exactly what I think is going to happen, right? It's exactly what's going to happen. So yeah, totally agree with you on that. And again, it's because everyone going to be now being on like a level playing field where there's no real advantage now. Let's say for a giant company who's a Fortune 500, and now let's say a mid market who wants to sell into the same group. Yeah, there's a little bit going on, but it's been reduced so much now because we're all going to be on like the same essentially tier of like access of information and things like that, as AI continues to get cheaper and cheaper, like you said, with the technological development and chips just doubling in capacity and less in price every year. It's just going to keep going. So that those elements, what are those going to be? Like, what is the advantages that people are going to have? What's the shaving of the hair off the body for a swimmer? Like, what does that look like between marketing and sales to give them that like micro advantage that's going to lead them to the promised land.
Yeah, well, I'm pre-prepared to swim in my lane, man. I'm in it for the speed. And here's the thing I want to throw out to everybody: just prepare. Like, this is an exciting time, and this is a brave new world. It is, and there's a book that's titled "A Brave New World," but I don't think it will be the social destruction that we see in the books, from that and from the show. I think it will be more of an opportunity to bring alive ideas that would once take billions of dollars, and an army of people might be able to be brought alive by 10 people in millions of dollars. And that's so cool to think the greatest innovations that usually went to the grave will now be able to be brought alive from people's minds with a lot less effort. And you got to think the level and speed of innovation in the last 100 years has increased 1,000-fold. Well, it's about to increase like a millionfold over the next 100. So hold on, and just feel like people are pushing towards good. And this is where people get like, oh, robots are going to take over and stuff like that. I really don't think so. I think that generally people's hearts are to improve the world for other people. And I think that people move in that. And greed gets glorified to some extent in society today, but I don't think it will be in the future. I think it will be pure innovation and development and improvement. And I think that we'll go from maybe the 40-hour work week down to the 20-hour work week. And I think that that will be within the next decade. We'll be able to do that. So you're going to get to enjoy a lot more of your life, and see a lot more of your family, just like a lot of people did during COVID. And these AI should be looked at like that. So we'll be able to pay very healthy wages and be able to live life more abundantly. And that's where I
Shoot, I
want
must
everyone.
have missed the memo that we haven't done that already. I've only been putting in 20 hours a week. I thought we were already there.
Yeah, you put 20 hours a day in, so don't even play. Just an exciting thing. Julio just had a little boy, so congratulations, Julio. We're all super excited for you, man. And he's already hard back at it. That was just a few days ago, and he's right here on a live. So he's one of the hardest working guys I've ever met, and I know he'll be a great dad to his new young boy here. So congrats, Julio. I know the whole world's rooting for you.
Thanks, my man. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. And hey, I could use those 20-hour work weeks you're speaking of coming in the future. That would be nice. So, but we're not there yet. So, unfortunately, I'll deal with the sleep hours that I'm currently getting. All good.
All right. Well, everybody, we appreciate you being here with us this week. And we're going to try to make these weekly things in the future. I think we're scheduled every couple weeks for now, but by March, we'll be bringing these out weekly. And we're going to start bringing on guests to talk about really pivotal topics that are in our network. And this can be from traditional management to really intrinsic topics like psychological safeties, to manifesting the biggest sales teams from some of the best sales leaders in the world. And we're going to bring everybody in here to talk to you, share their thoughts, and really use this platform to discover where things are going so you can be ahead of things. So if you like this, share it, repost it, comment, throw the good, the bad, and the ugly up there, because we want to improve and make things better. I'd love to know where you can test with our thoughts as well, because we're not oracles, nor are we always right. You can ask our wives. We are not always right. And 110%, we look forward to all of your feedback. All right, everybody. Thanks for the week. See you there.